Okay, hey everybody. I'm Rob. I'm a co-founder of Koko. We are a technology-based nonprofit working in the mental health sector. You can use all of our self-help services online for free. It's super easy, completely anonymous, and we've even built them to work right inside Tumblr, which I will show in a bit. So thank you first and foremost for Tumblr for hosting me today. I'm so happy to be talking to you. I'm going to be talking about emotional resilience. So this is one of my favorite topics in the world, partly because I find it so difficult. So we are all built with a certain natural aptitude for resilience, but some of us are blessed with more than others. So if you struggle with this, you are not alone. I am right there with you. So let's get started. What is emotional resilience? Well, this is one of those unfortunate terms that can have a million different meanings. We can talk about resilience over long time horizons, such as, how we respond and grow in the months or years following a traumatic event. You might think of this as post-traumatic growth, for example. Or we can talk about, on the totally the other side of the spectrum, we can talk about resilience that we summon in response to everyday moment-to-moment stressors. So think about times when you got really stressed and dysregulated and just felt completely overwhelmed, just an absolute dumpster fire of negative emotions. If you think about those times, I'm going to talk about some techniques and tools you can use for those precise moments. So let's define emotional resilience. It's really all about balance. So let's call it your ability to adapt to stressful situations. When life gets stressful, and it always does, how quickly can you maintain your equilibrium? Can you right yourself quickly when you get off balance? Or do you tend to fall off? How long does it take you to recover from an emotionally stressful situation? These are all elements of emotional resilience. And so a question is, can we strengthen this? Is this something that's just sort of innate and we have a set point, how resilient we are and it doesn't budge throughout our whole lives? No, the answer is no. We can absolutely strengthen our emotional resilience. And I'm going to show you a few skills to do that today. So if you want to be emotionally resilient, you should, of course, make sure you eat well, sleep well, exercise regularly, build strong social relationships. If you can do all four of these things, you will be well on your way. But if you're like me and you're like most people, you can't do all four of these things perfectly. These are monumental challenges. These are sort of lifelong endeavors to, learn how to exercise and have a good diet and all these things. So we should always be working on these. But there are some other quicker techniques we can use in the short term. So this kind of answers that question of, what can I use right now? So I'm going to show you some tricks that you can practice and use right now. The big disclaimer here is these are just a few. These are just a small subset of all sorts of emotional resilience techniques you could try. If these don't work for you, please don't give up. If you feel you don't have control of your emotions now, that doesn't mean that will always be the case. It just takes practice. So if you're going to get anything out of this live stream today, I want that to be the big message is, progress, not perfection. Emotional resilience is something you can practice, you can work on. It's a muscle you can build over time. So the first set of techniques I want to share, we have an abbreviation for them, which is TIP. So this is like my tip to you. So these techniques come from something called DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy. And these skills work very fast, usually within a few seconds to a few minutes. And they work to calm the limbic system down and lower the state of emotional arousal. So our bodies all have something called the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is part of our physiology that helps us calm down after moments of high stress by lowering our heart rate, reducing our blood pressure. And these are techniques here that are kind of like a hack to that system. They're a way to quickly activate that system and sort of trick it into activating. So the first one is really cool. It's an interesting one. It's one I use a lot, and it may seem a little strange at first. But this first one is called temperature. So here's what happens. If you put your face or your hands in a bowl of ice or cold water, or if you put an ice pack like over your eyes and have it on your temples, you can trigger something called the mammalian dive reflex. So most mammals have this. You've probably experienced it before. For example, if you've ever jumped into a cold pool or a cold lake, there's that kind of initial shock, but then there's a relaxation response that happens after. And there are ways to get this effect much more comfortably and conveniently than jumping into a cold pool. So if you have an ice pack, what you can do is you can put it on your face, make sure it rests over your temples and your eyelids, and try to hold it there for about 30 seconds. This is a great way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and experiencing a calming effect. So the next time you feel highly activated, distressed, upset, angry, especially when you have like emotions that kind of have a heat to them, think T for temperature and give this a try. Okay, the next technique is intense exercise. So this is fairly self-explanatory. It's just sort of another way to discharge negative emotions when you feel yourself escalating really too rapidly. You can run in place, do jumping jacks, do push-ups. It's important to note that exercise can be a sensitive issue, especially if you're struggling with an eating disorder. So if you're not, at a place in your treatment where this makes sense, try the T skill and then the next skill, which starts with P, and these are paced breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. So paced breathing, that's also pretty straightforward. So you want to pace your breathing when you find yourself getting a bit dysregulated. Breathe in, for example, for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 8 seconds. There are a lot of apps out there that can help you do this. You can even find little GIFs like this one on the screen. And what I like to do is I like to keep a browser tab open kind of at all times with one of these things running. And when I start to feel myself amping up a little too much, I switch over and just focus on the animation for a few minutes. So once you have that down, you can practice something called progressive muscle relaxation. So this is also one of the P techniques in the set of tip techniques. And the way this works is you can start by tensing all of your muscles at once, and just kind of like holding it in the tightest, tensest way possible, and then relaxing them. And if you do this repeatedly and systematically, you can calm yourself down. So I'm not going to demonstrate this now, but there are a lot of YouTube videos that will walk you through this. I think we'll paste one into the chat. Definitely something I recommend. You can do it anywhere. You can do it at work, at your desk, at home. It's a really easy, simple, portable skill set to have. Okay, so these tip techniques can work really fast, but they don't endure for that long, and they don't really fortify you for the next time something happens. So I would call these kind of like reactive techniques, not necessarily proactive techniques. So what would be better, perhaps, would be a skill that helps you ward off distress before it even grabs you. So next I'm going to dive deep on a skill that's a little more contemplative, a little more advanced, but it's really like a secret ninja skill. If you can master it truly, you can achieve really great emotional resilience. So before I start, I am going to take us all the way back to 150 AD. So this is Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman Stoic philosopher, an emperor, a very wise individual. And he said, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So what is he saying here? He's basically saying that you can reinterpret or reimagine or reframe a thought or situation to alter your emotional experience, to alter your emotional trajectory. This is basically the idea that if we can change how we think, we can change how we feel. And so I want to be clear, though, that this is not about being overly happy or optimistic. It's about finding new ways to think and the idea that even the worst situations can be reframed to some degree. So this is an idea that's been around for forever. You see it in philosophy, religion, literature. It's a core tenet of many modern psychotherapies, certainly cognitive behavioral therapy. So the question is, okay, does this skill actually work? There's a lot of, old sayings and old ideas that seem in principle to work, but we don't actually have a lot of evidence for. This one we do. There's a lot of evidence base for reframing as a really powerful emotion regulatory skill. So people who use this technique to manage tough, difficult, negative emotions, if this is kind of like their go-to grab bag technique, they tend to have a lot of really positive outcomes. They have lower incidence of depression, better interpersonal functioning, higher levels of well-being, etc. Okay, so this is great. There's this technique we can use. We don't have to buy any materials. We can do it wherever we are. It has great outcomes. Awesome. Problem is, it's actually really hard. It's really difficult. And I think a lot of the literature out there on this technique really doesn't emphasize that as much as maybe it should be. But when you are stressed out, your brain's ability to think flexibly and creatively is systematically impaired. And you can use some of those tip techniques I mentioned earlier to kind of give yourself a head start. But the reality is it's really hard to kind of wrestle with your own thoughts. And I have a quote up here on the screen. It comes from one of my favorite books. It's a book on depression. And the author talks about this and he says, it's hard to wrestle with your own consciousness because you have no tool in this battle except your consciousness itself. So I'm going to switch over and talk a little bit about Koko for a moment and really kind of focus on this last question here. So I built Koko when I was a graduate student at MIT. I was struggling with my own mental health issues. I was really struggling with depression. I came to MIT with a background in psychology and literature, and I really had very little engineering experience. I was completely overwhelmed. I was failing most of my classes. I was really stressed. So I was in therapy at the time, and I was doing cognitive therapy and CBT, and it was very, very helpful. But there were times when I needed more support, and I needed it quicker. So, being at MIT, we like to kind of like build solutions to things. We're always trying to hack things together and build things. So kind of in my spare time, without telling anyone, I started to hack together a platform that I could turn to anytime when I was distressed to help regulate myself. And I knew from the start I wanted human support to be the centerpiece of this. I was at MIT and everyone was hoping I would build some like robot therapist or something. But I believe then, and I still believe, that the most important element in any mental health service is people, first and foremost. So we like to think of Koko, it's a technology organization, but it's not just technology, it's about community. It's a place where anyone can go and get help or give help. And our goal is to help each other think more hopefully about the world. So we're not here to, make everyone perfect. This is a self-help tool. And if you look at our logo, you can see the letters O and K, OK, in the middle that are highlighted. And Koko backwards is spelled OK. So that's our aspiration, is to just give each other a little bit more help and more hope when we're feeling really dysregulated or stressed out. So I'm going to show you a quick demo and tell you how you can get to use it on Tumblr. So I will switch over to this slide here, and I'm going to go to kokobot.tumblr.com. This is where you can access Koko's services, and huge kudos and thanks to Tumblr for helping us integrate this directly into the platform. This is a really amazing thing. So you can access it here, and then you can click try on Tumblr. And this will work if you're on mobile or desktop. And when you click that, you will see kind of in the corner on the screen, it may be hard to see, but you'll get a message from CocoBot. So we have this little chat bot called CocoBot. It's pretty stupid, to be honest. It doesn't really do much, but what it is doing is it's helping facilitate different messages between users on Koko and routing people to different services and so forth. So that's how you can access it. So please check that out if you can. And I'm going to show you, just kind of zoom in on what it looks like. I'm going to use Telegram to do that. So we also have Koko on Telegram. And I'm going to use like my secret commands here just to get me back to a starting point so I can show you what it looks like. Okay, so the first thing that happens when you start using Koko is just going to ask you to describe kind of what you're struggling with. And if you're trying this out, I really recommend you focus on something specific and something kind of tangible, something that may have happened to you recently. So I'm going to show you one that I entered into Koko a while ago. I've been using this platform myself for many, many years, but one of the most helpful experiences I had was when I woke up in the middle of the night and I started using Koko because I had a horrible migraine. So I wrote, I have a horrible migraine. I can't sleep. I keep having these things. They will never go away. And so it's going to like kind of coax you to write your thoughts down. And this in itself can be really therapeutic. If you haven't yet, check out the Holiday Blues section on journaling and the journaling software there. But there's something that happens when you are ruminating and you have these negative thoughts and they're like ricocheting around your head. If you can write them down, it's like taking a lasso and bringing them down onto a slide that you can kind of like look at and dissect. So even just writing things down can be really helpful for people. And what's going to happen here is this is going to go out to the network. I'm going to add a few like little tags to my post. And what happened in my case is I had been practicing reframing my issues with migraines for a long time. I had a lot of like helpful narratives that would work, but some random stranger, I never will know who they are, wrote me a nice message on Koko. It came in just a few minutes. And they said a lot of nice things, but what they said to me was, they said like, look, science keeps improving. There are always new medications, always new treatments. So this idea of never getting better and kind of being stuck in this world of debilitating migraines for the rest of your life, it's not necessarily the most realistic and plausible scenario. So, these messages kind of resonate differently for different people. For me, that was really incredible. And it turned out to be true in my case as well. So their new medications came out and it helped me a lot. But even just having that little bit of hope where I didn't have any, when you're really struggling, when you're really overwhelmed, it's very easy to have these kind of knee-jerk narratives in your head, like this will never get better. This is always going to be like this. And sometimes it just takes a random stranger, just a few words to just like dislodge you from that. So the other thing you do when you're on Koko is when you're waiting for help, you can go help other people. So I'm not going to walk you through this. I encourage you to just kind of play with it. One piece of advice, if you're just trying this out, please don't worry about, not saying the absolute perfect thing. You would be amazed at how just a few kind words can really help a person on the service. So let me switch back to my slides. And on that last note, actually, one of the amazing things about Koko, and we've been studying this for years and years now, is that while people love getting help on the service, what they tell us over and over again that they love the most is helping other people. And in fact, the people who help others the most on Koko show the biggest benefits in many domains, including reduced depression symptoms. And so this is really amazing. And, there are a few reasons why I might, hypothesize why this could be. One is it just feels good to help people. And when you help people on Koko, you can get little thank you notes from them. We have our own sort of superhero, super user community. If you get enough thank you notes, you can get invited here. And there's all sorts of fun things we do. But one thing we do is we post, pictures of the thank you notes we got. They can really just turn your whole day around. When you write a few sentences to someone and they really say that you've changed their life in a meaningful way, it's really incredible. The other thing is when you're helping someone else reframe a difficult situation, you're rehearsing a strategy. And in some ways, it can be easier to rehearse this on other people in these kind of like bite-sized little moments. And so if you're practicing this over and over and over again, what we find, what I found myself and what others have disclosed as well, is that they start to adopt this mindset more automatically. And so when they encounter stress on their own in their own lives, their brain naturally goes to this place of reinterpreting the situation and reframing it and trying to find the more kind of hopeful narrative that will help them regulate and help them get on with their day and their goals. So with that, I'm going to close there. Thank you so much for joining me. There we go. On this Sunday for this Holiday Blues session. Thank you to Tumblr for having me. If you haven't checked out the other Holiday Blues sessions, please do. They're all amazing. They're all wonderful. Thank you again and have a great day. See ya.